So, welcome everybody. This is a workshop called, a part of a series called DAO Clinic that we do at gov.dao. So gov.dao is like a advisory that helps DAOs to form all over the world, in different jurisdictions. We are a team of legal professionals. I myself am a business development professional. And also technical development partners as well. So we help to build solutions for DAOs to start their operations and also to have a nice time when they are actually in operation as well. So if you want to find out more about us, you can have a look at our website. That's govdao.io. It's actually in the process of being updated today because we're going into a test net for one of our products. Or you can send us an email. I'll post some links to my Twitter and other stuff at the end. Or you can just reach me on here. Yeah, so a bit about me. My name's Bryn. I'm the head of partnerships and product at GovDAO. So I onboard a lot of DAOs into our ecosystem. We work with MeDAO, which is an incorporation agent in the Marshall Islands that allows companies to set up as DAOs. I'm also leading the product development sprint for our DAO tooling product that's about to go into testnet in literally a couple of hours, actually. So I do a lot of stuff over here, wear a lot of hats. Previous to this, I founded a DAO called The Secret Agency. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And I founded that with a global team of Web3 privacy aficionados. My background and what got me into Web3 is I was a product developer in primarily the health, food and fitness industry, but I also developed other products for e-commerce over the years. And along with that job, there's a lot of supply chain work. Obviously, finding new supply chains for new products is a big part of the puzzle of getting these things to market. And supply chain is quite boring and something that could benefit massively from automation. So I initially got into this industry during research in terms of automating supply chain tasks. And quite quickly, I figured out that actually there's no way we can automate the whole supply chain on a public blockchain, because if all of my competitor companies know my supply chain, then they're just going to bring products to market faster than me and undercut me, and I won't have a competitive business. So that got me into the Web3 privacy industry and DAOs and all these kind of other things. Previous to that, I was a chef for 15 years. I still do that occasionally for friends' events and weddings and this kind of thing. So that's a little bit about me. And in order for me to have a better time teaching you guys about DAOs, why don't we go around the room and introduce ourselves? Let's start from the top. So Dasha, if you would like to just tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, what brought you into Web3, anything you already know about DAOs would be awesome. And then we can just work through the list here on Discord.
Yeah, sure. I don't know, like, what exactly do you want to know? I just started, like, to dive into crypto. I'm not that good at it, so it would be great if I learn today about DAOs, and I'm very excited about it. So,
Nice. Okay, cool. We're certainly going to learn a lot about DAOs today. So thank you for being the brave first one to unmute. What about Freeternity? Would you like to give us a little introduction?
yeah, he's typing, hello, I'm front-end dev, I'm getting into Web3 a little bit.
Very nice, very nice. Actually, please shoot me a DM, because if you're looking for work, I might know someone who needs a front-end dev for eternity. So we always try and make the most of these connections that we make. Okay, so we've got a front-end dev, and what about who's next on the list? Alec HW. Hope I said that right.
Hey,
Hey,
Uh,
we can hear you.
what do you want to hear about me?
Just a little introduction.
Just a little introduction, okay? I'm a member of Gaidao for 2 years. And I am a member of secret Discord. I don't know how much. So I'm Web3 digger, validator, coder, retro drop hunter. That's all.
Awesome. So maybe me and you have already met in my previous life at Secret Agency. Brilliant. So we got a veteran in here. What about you, Artem? I see some people are typing in the chat. If you can't unmute because you're at work and you don't want your boss to find out, just type in the chat. Okay, going on. Let's go, BK. Give us a little introduction. Any kind of background you have in DAOs, that would be awesome.
I think everyone is shy.
Yeah, we always get some shy ones. There's always some shy ones, and then usually once the first few start doing it, people lose their shyness. I see Guy and Rosling is typing in the chat. Okay, we'll wait for that. Does anyone else want to?
Hi, Brian. Hi, everyone. I can introduce myself.
Of course.
My name is Andrei. I am also a member of Gaidao already 2 years. Also, I am a blockchain security researcher. I am a smart contract auditor, also auditor of blockchain consensus. And I am a DeFi user and a crypto investor.
Oh, nice. Okay, so we got an auditor as well. Brilliant. I'm really interested in these kind of crowdsource audits. Like I think Secure Free is doing this, where they have like bounty lists where lots of different auditors from all over the world can try and exploit projects or complete audits in a decentralized manner. It's quite a nice way of doing that kind of work, I think.
Yes. Security in Web3 is very important now. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe you could shoot me a message as well, because we're actually we'll be looking for some help with auditing our DAO tooling over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, please do. Okay, cool. Let's have a look at the chat. If anyone else wants to unmute and introduce themselves quickly, so we have Guy and Rosling, who's a back-end developer. He's not currently doing anything related to Web3 because he's developing another project, but he will be getting back to studying Web3 soon. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. Okay. Yeah, so if anyone else just wants to type in the chat, I'll move on because I'm conscious that we've got just an hour as well. But yeah, brilliant. Thanks to those who introduce yourselves. It's quite a broad mix, I think. So let's have a look at traditional organizations then. So this is your old school org chart, kind of example one. Some organizations are a little bit different to this. But usually at the top, you've got your CEO or director, senior management underneath. So that could be your board of directors. Then you have middle management. So this could be like your department heads, vice presidents, maybe this kind of thing. Junior management would be like who is area managers or office managers. They usually have supervisors underneath that supervise staff. Okay. So in a traditional organization, the decision making would usually come from the top levels. like the CEO and your board of directors might make decisions that affect the entire organization. Okay, so decision making in an organization can also be called governance. And it's very, very important when we talk about DAOs that we consider the governance of them. And in fact, it's why GovDAO is called GovDAO. So a traditional organization has multiple levels. The management processes need to be synchronized to the structure. Okay, so if the CEO makes a decision, everybody else has to follow, right? They can't, say, no, we don't like that decision, we're going to go another way. Otherwise, this organizational structure fails, right? In the pyramid, if the bottom layer was removed, then the whole pyramid will fall down. The incentive is usually the salary, which is usually in filthy fiat currency, and that's kind of usually the only incentive. Sometimes you get stock options and this kind of thing, but usually the incentive is money. And it's not very often that you see that the bottom level of the pyramid gets to affect the decision-making processes at the top of the pyramid. And in this way, they're also vulnerable as well, because if let's say the CEO is corrupt or something like that and he's embezzling money, this problem is going to affect the whole organization, because the whole of the strategic decision-making process is now corrupted as well because of the top level. Okay. So a DAO is a distributed system of governance. Okay. So it's not top down, it relies on multiple stakeholders, and those can be lots and lots of different types of people. It's autonomous. It's often run by smart contracts, which are automated execution systems for various different purposes, and we can get into that a little bit later, maybe in the next class. And it's also organized at the same time. So by organization, we can mean anything from your local book club to a big financial institution. And these things often start off very, simple and easy to understand, but as they grow and as they need to become competitive businesses, they get very complex. And actually, in order to be competitive with traditional businesses, obviously we know that this system has worked for the last couple of 100 years as a system of organizing companies. This system has got to be as effective as this, right? In order to be competitive in the real world. Okay? So, a DAO is, this kind of distributed system where every stakeholder has a say in governance and how the decision-making processes of the organization as a whole are run. So this is just an example here, but this is kind of common stakeholders in DAOs. So you might have developers and researchers. You might have validators and investors. Okay. So for example, with a new project, often the developers and the researchers will get a share of the tokens. When the project launches its token, they'll have quite a nice token grant. And the investors will be able often to purchase, like this is talking about professional investors, will be able to purchase tokens in private funding rounds. Validators will be able to run nodes and get early token distributions. And then, staff will also get token grant. And then users and miners might be able to get in, maybe at a later date, to the rest of them. But in a token-weighted governance system, they'll all have a say in how the network is run. So if you look, for example, at the Cosmos ecosystem, they have dedicated proof of stake. So any user that delegates their coins to a validator, the validator will make votes on their behalf, or the user can vote and override the validator's vote. Okay, and that's on a range of different issues, from network upgrades to should we spend money on funding this conference sponsorship, or should we start an African community? All sorts of different decision-making processes are included in the governance. And usually that's that governance instructs a smart contract to do something, whether it's giving funding to a team to go and perform a task, or upgrading network infrastructure, this kind of thing. If I just show you an example, actually, of how Cosmos is a really good example, because it's kind of like a melting pot for governance, because all of the different chains can communicate with each other. So often not for the better of the project. And these should have pictures, but basically this is like a visual description of how Cosmos operates. So each of these chains is unique in its own way, but they're all built on the same SDK. Okay, so it's quite easy to spin up a Cosmos SDK chain, and each of these chains will have a unique value proposition. Okay, so for example, Osmosis is a really cheap, really fast DEX. So you can see lots of transactions. Those are the shooting stars coming into Osmosis and going out. And they have this communication protocol, IBC, inter-blockchain communication, I think, that allows them to communicate with each other. So my previous job, where are we? Somewhere secret is well, their kind of speciality, here we are, is privacy. So they have private smart contracts. Okay. For example, Axelar has a bridge to EVM, so this whole ecosystem can communicate with the EVM ecosystem. So each has unique value propositions, and each has a governance protocol. So any of the stakers of these various coins, each secret's got SCRT, Osmo's got Osmo, Axelar, I think, is AXL. Each one can stake their coins and participate in governance on the network. So this is a really good example of decentralized governance in action. This is like individual DAOs communicating with each other, and then this is just the protocol layer. When you get down to the DApp layer of projects that are actually built on these chains, then you also have much more complex governance structures. So yeah, and then if we go back to the slides. So this is a typical example of a DAO formation. And, you know, as we're going into this age of AI, potentially in the next few years, it could look like this. So you could have AIs, you know, feeding votes into governance. Maybe they're instructed to follow a certain voting pattern. And you could even have smart contracts in place of stakeholders. And in fact, in some circumstances, you do. Like, for example, the method of DAI, the stablecoin, I think it's MakerDAO, isn't it? That the way that maintains its peg is via smart contracts. So the smart contract is feeding information into governance. Okay. So yeah, so this is the secret agency. This is one that I co-founded. It was a small operation. It was non-profit. We founded as a DAO in the Marshall Islands, which is one of the only jurisdictions in the world that allows you to set these things up as limited liability companies, which is very important. We'll get onto that and the legal aspects and risks a bit later. Our org was focused on Web3 privacy, so the adoption of privacy-preserving Web3 technologies. Obviously, I said before that I came from a supply chain background where I wouldn't want to reveal my supply chain for any products to competitors. In the same way, I would never want to, let's say, if I was using a decentralized Uber service, I wouldn't want everyone on the Ethereum network to be able to see where my house is and where I go to work and stuff like that. I wouldn't, if I was paying for a coffee and we were using crypto, I wouldn't want the barista to be able to see all of my open positions on Aave or, you know, the mortgage on my house and all this kind of stuff. So for me and for this organization, the Web3 privacy and overcoming these issues is a big barrier to adoption. So we need to solve for Web3 for privacy before most enterprises and citizens around the world can start to use Web3. Okay. We had 30 global contributors as of this time last year, and we were in the DAO itself on the executive board. There was 4 members, but then we had like a kind of sub DAO structure as well. So the way we organized was to split into 4 business verticals, right? Developer relations, which was hackathon organization and making sure that the documentation for Secret Network, which is the chain that we were, working for mostly, was up to date. All of this kind of stuff fell under developer relations. So, making videos about code demonstrations and this kind of stuff. Business development, which is my section, was helping teams that were building on the Secret Network to access VC funding, or we were building partnerships between different teams and protocols within the Cosmos ecosystem as examples of what we did. International communities was supporting the education and translation of all the stuff that we were putting out around the world, so into different languages. And education was outreach to universities and doing lectures and doing workshops and stuff like this, basically. So each of those verticals had a team that was working primarily underneath them, and they were organized as kind of sub-DAOs. So they all fed in, input and opinion into what we should do next. So all of that info went into governance, and then we would vote initially between the 4 executive, and then we were planning to expand it, but bear market happened. So there's like a governance process, and that led to these teams being funded to do different types of activities. So this was my first foray into DAO organization, and it was kind of small, but it was, for the time it was operating, it was effective. And we're about to spin this up into something bigger and badder now that the bull has come back. Okay, so question time. And I want someone to be brave here and unmute or type in the chat. Does anybody know what the first DAO was?
The DAO?
Hey, we got the first one right. Nice one. Yeah. So actually, some people say Bitcoin was the first DAO because it's the first distributed network, and the miners are the control the forks of the chain. But there was this project called the DAO. It launched in April 2016 on Ethereum. Very, very popular project. Do look into this because it's one of those wrecked.news moments in crypto. They got hacked for almost 33% at the time of the entire ETH supply in the July of 2016. So, a couple of months later, people had dumped a lot of ETH into this protocol, and it was hacked. Not very good for Ethereum at the time, because someone could just come and dump that 33% of the entire supply. So the Ethereum miners voted to, I got a typo there, voted to fork the chain, and this created Ethereum Classic and the Ethereum that we know and use today. So the miners reverted the transactions, actually, and kind of went back to a time before the DAO hack happened. And unfortunately, this led to a regulator crackdown. The SEC concluded that DAO tokens were securities, and it led to a lot of problems later down the line for projects during the ICO mania phase in the next bull cycle. So DAOs initially got off to a pretty bad start. Okay, if we fast forward to 2024, DAOs are everywhere. There is, as you can see here, over 1,000 blockchain networks circulating at the moment, some more successful than others. There's 13,000 DAOs operating worldwide, and over 23 billion invested. Almost every project deployed and pre-deployment in Web3 right now is structuring themselves as a DAO. The latest data that I could get on the money aspect, on the amount of TVL liquidity that's locked in these things, is from May 2023. So this 23 billion probably by now is doubled at least. a lot of these organizations have set themselves up, or at least in the marketing, are saying that they're decentralized autonomous organizations, but maybe they haven't got a legal entity. Maybe they, potentially did this in a time when the technology wasn't available for them to operate as a competitive business. And especially with new regulations that are coming in, like anti-money laundering regulations, and if you're in the EU, the MiCA, they often are not prepared for these regulatory changes that are affecting our industry. So a lot of our work at gov.dao is helping them to understand and to fix for these problems, to solve for these problems. Okay. So the common features of a DAO are non-exhaustive list. We talked earlier about decentralized governance. So they operate on a model where the decision-making powers are distributed among their members rather than centralized in a single authority. They usually employ smart contracts. So there's the rules that govern the DAO are encoded into the smart contract, which are usually self-executing along with the terms of the agreement. So they follow a kind of code is law practice. In some DAOs, you have transparency. So, and I don't necessarily agree with this as a functional feature of a DAO. I think that having all of your transactions and decisions for your business recorded on blockchain that's public to everybody is not necessarily very competitive. But some organizations, maybe an MPO, would see that as a plus feature. Token-based voting. So voting rights in the DAOs are often tied to the ownership of governance tokens, like in the Cosmos ecosystem. However, that is not the only method of weighting voting. You could have one member, one vote, for example. You could give those members NFTs that signify that they're a member. You'd have to solve for people collecting lots of NFTs and having lots of governance power. Autonomy. So DAOs are designed to operate autonomously with minimal human intervention with their smart contracts. And a great feature of them is that they're global and inclusive. So usually anyone can join a DAO or participate in any way. The most successful DAOs, I think, combine the human skill sets of lots of different types of people. So in the room today, we've got a lot of developers and technical people, but a good DAO would also have some marketing professionals, some business development professionals, some educators. All of these kind of human skill sets combine into creating an effective organization. They're flexible and modular, so they can be created for a wide range of purposes, as we said before, from a boot club to a credit card company. And they could be as flexible as structured as required. A modular means that you can add on different business verticals. So, for example, with Secret Agency, if we go back, we have 4. But let's say, for example, that we wanted to add a marketing department, we could just add another sort of sub-DAO community into the governance of this organization. So it's very modular. If one organization goes down or does something that the DAO doesn't like, it's quite easy to just vote in governance to vote new people in and to change the leadership or to even change the strategy of each of those different organizations. Usually there's some degree of community-driven funding and rewards. So many DAOs feature mechanisms for community-driven funding, like crowdfunding campaigns or token sales, which supports projects and operations. Additionally, contributors can receive rewards, often in the form of tokens, for their participation or contributions to the DAO. So everyone that was in our Secret Agency would get a token grant every month for their contributions. And the kind of way that we valued the work that they did was on a consensus basis. So everybody in the DAO kind of said, okay, well, you're spending this much hours on translation work, is that as valuable as someone that's spending XYZ hours on development? Maybe there's kind of different pay scales for different types of technicality work. Resistance to censorship. So because these organizations are decentralized, their operations are on blockchain, they are very resistant to censorship and external control. It's difficult for governments or centralized institutions to take them down. They can just continue to operate as intended in those situations, or they can just fork, or people, I think it was Tornado Cash where the developers were arrested. And just the next day you just see 20 Tornado Cash equivalents opening up, similar to the situation with the Silk Road, which was a drug marketplace in the early days of crypto. The organizer of that allegedly was arrested, and the next day there was 100 different Silk Roads open on the dark web. So very resistant to censorship and control, and also a space for innovation and experimentation. So this area is very new. There's only two really jurisdictions in the world that recognize these orgs as companies, and where you can actually set up businesses as a DAO. This information has changed this week. Actually, Wyoming launched a new framework for a non-profit DAO LLC. So it's very new and it's very experimental at the moment. But we see from our position as advisors that lots and lots of organizations are interested in this kind of structure. People have been looking for ways to have direct digital democracy for a long time. And we're even seeing organizations that are not crypto native, that know nothing about all the different coins and networks and all this kind of stuff, interested in just the company structure. Okay, so they don't necessarily want to deal with crypto. They just want a more democratic way of organizing their business, which is awesome. So in terms of like the reasons people form a DAO, the key core utilities are often, as we said before, this global collaboration, immutability and security, efficiency and automation, decentralized management, this kind of thing. A lot of the reasons that we get from people for funding DAOs are, actually we've highlighted 5 different use cases, and this is kind of the frameworks that we give to DAOs when they come to us. So, for example, like venture capital funding. So DAOs can be very useful for venture capitalists in that they can democratize the the fund, allowing the members to collectively decide which startups or projects to invest in. In fact, Republic has launched, and I'll show you the website for this. They have tokenized the first crypto token VC. So this is called the Republic Note, and they've actually tokenized a VC fund. So with this, you can get exposure to companies like SpaceX and all sorts of different companies that it's really hard to get exposure as a private investor, non-accredited or anything like this. You can see the full list here, but they actually have a token live now where you can invest in that. I don't recommend doing that because the liquidity is absolutely dog shit, but it's kind of the first step. So community governance. So any organization that wants to govern themselves via the community. DAOs provide a structured way to gather feedback and implement changes to the organization based on the community votes. DeFi protocols are a big one. So DAOs are pivotal in this industry for managing the protocols in a decentralized manner, adjusting rules on things like how a stable coin is pegged or what liquidity incentives there are for different pools, for example. And also distributing the profits without central authority. So your DAO contract can distribute your profits there. In the content creation industry, so DAOs are allowing people to facilitate collaborative projects and equitable distribution of profits based on contribution and community agreements. So a couple of different use cases there. And in GovDAO, our frameworks that we develop are for investment DAOs. Is kind of the biggest one and probably the most popular. So members will vote on the potential investments for the funds based on the collective intelligence and shared goals. Examples of these are DAOs that focus on real estate. Real world assets is kind of a big one that we're dealing with at the moment. For example, we have a team that's opening a bar and restaurant in Barcelona that's like pizzas and cocktails, and they've actually offered 40% equity in the company up as crypto tokens. So that's quite interesting. The investors in that will get to decide whether they spend the profits on opening another venue and potentially making more money, or they distribute to all the holders. Trust fund DAOs. So this is an area of law and company organization that's kind of untouched at the moment by crypto, where you have these trust funds. The DAO would operate as an alternative to a traditional trust or estate, managing assets on behalf of beneficiaries. Potentially for this one, the privacy element would be huge. We wouldn't want to, have everyone having eyes on our inheritance. And you'd have probably a very small DAO team for that kind of operation. Team and operational DAO. So this is kind of following the structure of the secret agency DAO with different business units, all having a say in governance and funding being allocated to the different teams for various projects. Community DAOs. So these are kind of focused around shared interests, goals, and values. They empower different communities to self-govern and direct the resources towards common objectives. So communication is a big element of these things. You need to have effective communication. Obviously, when you've got a lot of humans in the DAO as well, maintaining the level of like polite conversation is also a big challenge too. And then we have the legal governance platform. So this is kind of like a method of direct democracy, and this is what we actually use for GovDAO, where this DAO can create and enforce digital contracts and legal agreements without central oversight. So this is kind of what we're building for ourselves at the moment, and it's a challenge in trying to disrupt conventional legal systems. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with GovDAO. Different types of governance frameworks though. So some DAOs opt for token weighting, where the amount of tokens you have decides the amount of governance power that you have. I think that's necessarily open to manipulation, or whales getting more of a say than everyday users, which isn't necessarily good. Some opt for one member, one vote. So where one organization has one member has one share of governance. Some opt for sub-DAOs for different business units, as we talked about before. This is Balance of DAO with their different sub-DAOs. And also, now people are talking about quadratic voting, which is, I'll get into that a bit more next in tomorrow's class, but that's another method of frameworking. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I guess let's go around the room, and if anyone's got any questions or would like to workshop how they would turn their organization into a more effective DAO, or wants to talk about Guide DAO if you're a veteran here, yeah, let's just open the floor to like AMA at this point.
We actually have a question in the chat. How do you feel about ICS, and do you see it as an advantage for DAOs? ICS means interchain security.
I will need a primer on interchain security from you, Alec. I'm going to fire this question back to you. How do you feel about ICS? And could it potentially be advantageous for DAOs? I'm not too. I used to work in Cosmos, but I think ICS has come out a little bit after my time. So yeah. What do you think? It
I
seems
have
like
no answer because it's two projects who it's Stride and DYDX, as I remember, who work with ICS and ICA. I don't have some answer for this question.
Okay. I am looking at the ICS website right now. I believe I'm on the right one, Interchain Security on the Cosmos Hub. And it looks like a method of deploying a Cosmos SDK chain in order to contact and interact with EVM, which is Ethereum Virtual Machine, in an easier way. So, okay, so DAOs. Okay, so if we've got the right understanding of this, and that it's an interchain kind of communication system and security protocol, then the main thing that DAOs require is effective communication. So whether that's between groups of humans or different business verticals, or different blockchains and different networks, the most effective DAO in the world will be the one that can operate over multiple different blockchains. We're actually quite segmented in the blockchain space at the moment by the limitations of the technology that we're using. You know, on Ethereum, for example, you have to bridge between all these different layer twos to be able to, do swaps without paying a lot of gas. Cosmos has taken the approach where all of these chains can communicate with each other at the protocol level. So if I just go back to the map of zones quickly, then all of these chains, the first step for these guys is to be able to send their token to each other. Okay. So, and they normally have little logos, but sometimes it doesn't work. So when a blockchain, these are all independent layer 1 blockchains. When they first come online, like this one's quite small over here. What's this one? Onomi. I have no idea what it does, but it probably has some kind of specialization. When these first come online, usually they can only send the native token. Okay? And then the next phase, like let's say with Injective, that's a bit further along the development, is that they can start to do contract interactions. So maybe they can send tokens that are wrapped on their network. With Secret, for example, all of the tokens there are wrapped and private. Whenever you interact with the contracts on Secret Network, nobody can see on the chain what you're doing. Okay, so and the next phase of Secret was to have these SNP20 tokens be able to be traded on the IVC network, which gets rid of the privacy in most cases because a lot of these chains are public by default. But it was a new kind of turning point in their communication with blockchains. Now, what's difficult at the moment, and the only real solution is Axelar, is for all of the blockchains to be able to communicate with the Ethereum network, the Ethereum virtual machine. Axelar is great if you're sending assets, but it costs a lot. It costs, I think the last time I sent some tokens, it cost me $40 on the Cosmos side. And then on the Ethereum side, it's even more, so it's expensive. What we're seeing is new solutions to that. So let's say, for example, I don't want to send assets. I just want to send a yes or no vote for my governance that I've done on the Secret network privately via my gov.dao DAO manager. And I just want to send the result of that governance back to my DAO multisig on Ethereum. I don't necessarily want to pay so much for that transaction. I just need essentially a query or something like that. So it should be cheaper. So now we're seeing new protocols like Secret Path, and it looks like Interchain Security is here as well, where you can do a more versatile range of communications across the different networks. So I can actually maybe show you guys a little demo as well. So yeah, to answer your question, I feel like these any kind of protocols that are improving communication between different blockchain networks are fantastic for DAOs. The easier it is to communicate on different types of messaging for the smart contracts, it's going to make DAOs more effective and more versatile and able to attract more use cases. I can see I am define is typing away here as well. I'd like to just take a moment while we wait for the question from I am define as well to give you all an invite to our Discord server. So actually GovDAO is going into testnet today with a DAO manager that protects privacy and allows you to vote privately, allows you to create treasuries for sub DAOs privately, allows you to communicate with other people in the DAO privately, and all of this product is wrapped up as GovDAO and it's going into testnet today. So if you join our Discord, go through the verification process, you'll be able to test the product in about 2 hours when we go live with that. And those that test it and help us to make it better are going to be rewarded later on when we launch our token for sure. So I'm Define asks, is there a major difference of DAO formation between the Cosmos ecosystem and Ethereum? It is right. So this is interesting. So there's the different solutions available for people that want to launch DAOs are like Aragon in the Cosmos ecosystem. I'm going to show you this as well. So in the Ethereum ecosystem, you've got these kind of, that's the town in Spain. Okay, so this is a DAO toolkit for Ethereum. Cosmos has DAO they're called, and you can very quickly launch a DAO here, right? So it's relatively easy. You just kind of log in and then start launching your DAO. You get your smart contracts and your governance. But the thing is, you don't have a legal entity. So in that, and we'll get into this a little bit more tomorrow, but then you're basically an unlimited liability company, and anyone that's in the DAO can have their assets taken from them if the DAO, gets sued. And as well, you don't have, this is all public by default, and this is like a one-size-fits-all solution. So every organization, every business is different, has different needs, and usually attacking different use cases and all sorts of different stuff. They need bespoke solutions. So Aragon and DAO are kind of like one-size-fits-all solutions. Gov.DAO is a bespoke. We actually work direct with the clients to add different features that they request. So there's different approaches. There's easy approach, and then if you want to make an effective business, you might need a bit more bespoke feature sets, like, for example, vesting. If you've got like early investors on vesting contracts, but you still want them to have a say in governance, your Aragon and DAO isn't going to support that, but GovDAO would, because we build it especially for you, and it would also have your logo and everything on there and color schemes. Yeah, so there's DAO that Alec has just posted. It's actually interesting because we're looking at partnering up with DAO, so people, because DAOs want to communicate with other DAOs, and another aspect of this is that people who contribute a lot to DAOs are very valuable, in fact. So if you can get someone who's an awesome contributor to a DAO, these are like the highest value users. So we're looking at ways of how we can identify those people and how DAOs can organize marketing campaigns to target them specifically. So that's kind of the frontier that we're working on at the moment. We're thinking that you will be able to like earn well, I don't want to give too much away, but essentially earn like certification that you are like an amazing front-end developer and you've contributed to lots of DAOs, and then if DAOs need that kind of service, they can just access a marketplace. Does anyone else have a question for today? We've got a couple of minutes left. Yeah, I see, Alec. I think we answered that in terms of is there a major difference of DAO formation between Cosmos and Ethereum? It depends. You can have easy to set up DAOs if you're just organising a boot club, for example. That's a fairly easy setup. Or you can have very complex DAOs. If you're organising a DeFi protocol, for example, you're probably going to want a lawyer to look at that. You're probably going to want to make sure that everything is set inside limited liability companies and that there's no risk coming back to your investors and your participants and members in the DAO. So between Cosmos and Ethereum, I would say that they're both the same level of difficulty. If you're looking to just launch a one-size-fits-all DAO. One thing I had noticed, because I spoke at a Solana conference before Christmas, and I noticed that they have quite an active and passionate DAO community, but they don't have any privacy tooling in Solana. So this is going to be a big barrier for them, I think, when they Ethereum community is kind of very focused on privacy at the moment. Cosmos has most of the solutions that Ethereum community are saying that they need, but they just don't have the awareness. And Solana just seems to be focused on meme coins, degen stuff. So, okay, guys. Well, that was a really nice session. I think it's nice when everyone's interactive and kind of asking questions and isn't scared to unmute themselves. Oh, we've got one more question. Alec, do you think there are cases of corruption or manipulation in DAO? Of course there are. The first DAO was hacked for 33% of the ETH in circulation. These things are, there's always a chance of corruption and manipulation. For example, if you have people like, let's say a validator on a new Cosmos chain, let's say validators are able to validate transactions and get really big bags of the coin early on, right? What happens 5 years down the line when your network is supposed to be a lot more decentralized, but you still got these people who have early bags because they were running nodes at the time, maybe not aligned with the goals of the network? It's very hard to displace them in a token-weighted governance system. And it's I would argue, one of the major problems of most DAOs that are set up that way is that people's incentives are not aligned with the DAO's incentive over time. So you could solve for that by having quadratic voting systems, or you could have one member, one vote. If you were sure that one member had one vote, if you used like soulbound NFTs, for example. Yes, exactly, like a Juno whale. Yeah. This is the guy that farmed the airdrop, right, and got a lot of early tokens, and then basically controlled the governance of Juno network. Yeah, so for me, I've worked in these token-weighted systems and organizations for a while, and I've been through a bear market and seen how nasty it gets. And I don't think it works. I think that there's a bit more of a bespoke framework is needed for effective governance. And really, for me, and this is how we're kind of building out GovDAO, is that the contribution that you make in terms of because some people haven't got loads of money to just throw into things. Some people use their time, and the time is more valuable than the money that they have, for example. So we need to find ways of quantifying that and making sure that people who can't contribute financially can also contribute with time and energy and passion. And these kind of things are baked into the governance framework as well. Okay, guys, I think we'll finish it there because I have to launch this bloody product this afternoon. But thank you so much for all your questions. We are going to start again tomorrow. Dasha, what time is that? Remind me.
Yeah, it's wait, it's 4 p.m. Moscow time, which means it's 2 p.m. Central Europe time.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll start again at that time tomorrow, and we'll look at some of the problems with DAOs, some of the risks, some of the ways you can start DAOs, some of the bespoke features that GovDAO does. But in the meantime, if anybody has any questions that they really want answered in tomorrow's session around DAOs, please post them in the chat and at me, send me a DM or anything like that, and we'll make sure that they are answered in tomorrow's class. Thank you everybody for coming, and see you tomorrow. Hopefully see you in the GovDAO server as well.
Thank you.
Cheers, it's a pleasure. Right, see you tomorrow.
See
Thank
you.
you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Ciao.